They say that karma has no deadline, but in New York City, sometimes it arrives in a black armored SUV. On a freezing Tuesday in December, 23-year-old Agatha Jenkins lost her job for being the only human being in a room full of monsters. She knelt on a dirty floor to help a frail, fallen woman while the city's elite pointed, laughed, and filmed it for their Instagram stories. They didn't know that the woman on the floor was the only person in the world feared by the Reaper himself. They laughed at the waitress. 10 minutes later, nobody was laughing. This is the story of how a single act of kindness brought an empire to its knees. The invitation-only gala at the St. Regis, New York on East 55th Street was the kind of event where the air conditioning smelled like vanilla orchids and old money. It was the annual Winter Solstice Charity Ball, a title that Agatha Jenkins found ironic, considering the ticket price alone could have fed her entire neighborhood in Queens for a year. Agatha adjusted the collar of her stiff polyester uniform. It was 2 sizes too big, scratching at her neck. She had been working for Prestige Catering for 6 months, picking up double shifts to pay for her younger sister's dialysis treatments. Her feet, encased in cheap black flats from Walmart, were throbbing. She was invisible. That was the first rule Mr. Henderson, the floor manager, had drilled into them. You are furniture. You are ghosts. You refill the champagne, you clear the plates, and you do not exist. The ballroom was a sea of velvet tuxedos and gowns that sparkled like diamond dust. At the center of the room, holding court near the ice sculpture, was Tiffany St. Clair. Tiffany was the daughter of a real estate tycoon, a 26-year-old influencer whose smile never quite reached her cold blue eyes. She was surrounded by her entourage, men in Tom Ford suits and women who looked like terrified dolls. More Pinot Grigio, Tiffany snapped, not even looking at Agatha as she thrust her empty glass backward. Of course, ma'am, Agatha whispered, pouring the wine with a steady hand despite the exhaustion trembling in her legs. It was then that the doors to the ballroom creaked open. Usually the arrival of a guest was announced with fanfare, but this entrance was quiet. A woman stepped in. She looked to be in her late 60s, perhaps early 70s. She wasn't wearing the trendy, revealing cuts of the modern elite. She wore a heavy black vintage coat, a silk scarf wrapped around her head, and gripped a simple wooden cane. She looked like a grandmother who had wandered into the wrong building on her way to church. The room didn't go silent immediately. It started with ripples of confusion, whispers. Who is that? Did security let the cleaning lady in through the front door? Oh my God, look at her shoes. Are those orthopedics? The old woman took a few shaky steps onto the polished marble floor. She seemed disoriented, her dark eyes scanning the room as if looking for a familiar face. As she passed Tiffany St. Clair's circle, Tiffany extended a leg, subtle, quick, barely noticeable. The old woman's cane hit the silk of Tiffany's dress, losing traction on the marble. It happened in slow motion. The cane slid out. The woman gasped, a dry, brittle sound, and crumbled to the floor. She landed hard on her hip, her purse spilling its contents. A rosary, a few hard candies, and an old photograph, across the gleaming floor. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then Tiffany St. Clair laughed. It was a cruel, high-pitched sound. "Oops," she said, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. "Clean up on aisle 5. I think the homeless shelter is down the block, sweetie." The laughter was contagious. It spread through the circle. Men chuckled into their drinks. Women smirked. Not a single person moved to help. They stood there, holding their $5,000 clutches, watching an old woman struggle to push herself up, her face contorted in pain and humiliation. Mr. Henderson, the manager, was rushing over, but not to help. He was speaking into his headset, his face red. "Security, get this vagrant out of here. She's ruining the aesthetic." Agatha didn't think. She didn't calculate the cost of her rent or her sister's medical bills. She just saw her own grandmother. She saw a human being. She dropped her serving tray. The crash of 30 crystal flutes shattering against the marble echoed like a gunshot. Champagne sprayed onto the hems of the nearby gowns. "You idiot!" Mr. Henderson screamed. Agatha ignored him. She ran to the old woman, dropping to her knees in the puddle of champagne and broken glass. She didn't care that the shards were cutting into her stockings. "Mom, are you okay?" Agatha asked, her voice soft, trembling with rage at the people around them. She gently touched the woman's arm. "Don't try to move too fast. I've got you." The old woman looked up. Her eyes were obsidian black, sharp and intelligent, despite the pain. She looked at Agatha, really looked at her, analyzing her face, her concern, the name tag on her cheap uniform. I tripped," the woman rasped, her accent thick, Italian. "My hip." I know, Agatha soothed. She took off her own catering jacket and wrapped it around the woman's shoulders. "I'm going to help you up, okay? Just lean on me." "What do you think you are doing?" Tiffany St. Clair shrieked. "You splashed champagne on my Louboutins. You clumsy little rat." Mr. Henderson arrived, grabbing Agatha by the shoulder and yanking her back. "Get away from her. You're fired, Jenkins. Get your things and get out. Security is handling this trash." Agatha shrugged off his hand, her eyes blazing. "She's hurt. What is wrong with you people? She's an old woman." "She's a trespasser," Henderson spat. "And you are unemployed. Security." Two burly guards in blazers stepped forward, reaching for the old woman. "Don't touch her," Agatha shouted, shielding the woman with her own body. "Call an ambulance, you cowards." The old woman gripped Agatha's wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Bambina," she whispered. "It is okay." "It's not okay," Agatha said, tears stinging her eyes. "They can't treat you like this." "Oh, look," Tiffany sneered, pulling out her iPhone. "The trash protecting the garbage. This is going viral. #charity case." The room was roaring with laughter now, a coliseum of cruelty. And then the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The heavy double doors at the main entrance were kicked open. They didn't just open, they slammed against the walls with a violence that shook the chandeliers. The laughter died instantly. 6 men walked in. They moved with military precision, wearing suits that cost more than most cars. They didn't look like security. They looked like predators. They formed a perimeter instantly, hands hovering near their waistbands. But it was the 7th man who sucked the air out of the room. He was tall, over 6'3", with broad shoulders that strained against a charcoal 3-piece suit. His hair was dark, slicked back, and his face was a mask of cold, terrifying fury. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow. He walked into the room, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. People stepped back, clutching their chests, their faces draining of color. That's Lorenzo Moretti," someone whispered in terror. The name hit the room like a bomb. Lorenzo Enzo Moretti, the head of the Moretti crime family, the man the FBI had been trying to pin down for a decade, the man known in the underworld as Il Mietatore, the Reaper. He didn't look at the guests. He didn't look at Tiffany. He walked straight toward the center of the room, his eyes locked on the floor. Agatha froze. She was still kneeling, holding the old woman. She saw the expensive Italian leather shoes stop inches from her knees. She looked up, terrified, expecting to be kicked or killed. Lorenzo Moretti looked down. His eyes were the same obsidian black as the old woman's, but where hers were pained, his were full of a violence so raw it made Agatha's breath hitch. Then the monster fell to his knees. He ignored the champagne soaking his suit trousers. He ignored the glass. He reached out, his hands shaking slightly, and touched the old woman's face. "Mama," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that carried across the silent room. "Mama, are you hurt?" A collective gasp went through the room. The glass fell from Tiffany St. Clair's hand and shattered. The homeless trespasser wasn't a vagrant. She was Donatella Moretti, the matriarch, the only person Lorenzo Moretti loved, the only person who could tell the devil what to do. Donatella looked at her son. Then she looked at Agatha. She patted Agatha's hand. "I am hurt, Lorenzo. I fell. But this Angelo, she helped me when the others—" They laughed. Lorenzo slowly turned his head. He didn't stand up yet. He just turned his neck, scanning the crowd. His gaze landed on Mr. Henderson, who was trembling so hard his knees knocked together. Then his eyes slid to Tiffany St. Clair. "They laughed?" Lorenzo asked softly. "They laughed," Donatella confirmed. "And this man, he fired her for helping me." Lorenzo stood up. He towered over Agatha. He extended a hand to her. "Stand up," he commanded. Not unkindly, but with absolute authority. Agatha took his hand. He pulled her up effortlessly. "What is your name?" he asked. "Agatha. Agatha Jenkins." "Agatha Jenkins," Lorenzo repeated, as if memorizing a scripture. He took off his own suit jacket and placed it over his mother's shoulders, over Agatha's cheap catering jacket. He turned to the room. "Lock the doors," he said to his men. The heavy thud of the locks engaging echoed through the silent ballroom. "Nobody leaves," Lorenzo said, his voice calm, which made it infinitely more terrifying, "until I find out who tripped my mother." The atmosphere in the St. Regis ballroom had shifted from a celebration of wealth to a hostage situation in less than 60 seconds. The band had stopped playing mid-note. The waiters were pressed against the walls, trying to blend into the wallpaper. Lorenzo Moretti stood in the center of the circle, one hand resting protectively on his mother's shoulder as she sat on a velvet chair one of his guards had rushed over. "My mother," Lorenzo began, his voice projecting without a microphone, "came here tonight to donate anonymously to the Children's Hospital Fund. She likes to see where the money goes. She walked in the front door, and you treated her like stray dog." He walked slowly toward Tiffany St. Clair. Tiffany was pale, her lip quivering. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the primal fear of a prey animal cornered by a wolf. I didn't know," Tiffany stammered. "Mr. Moretti, please, it was a misunderstanding. She looked poor." Lorenzo stopped inches from her face. He smelled of tobacco, expensive cologne, and gunpowder. "She looked poor," he repeated flatly. "And that made it funny?" "No, I didn't mean—" "I saw the video," Lorenzo said, nodding toward one of his men who was holding Tiffany's phone. He had snatched it from her hand moments ago. "You were live streaming. Clean up on aisle 5, correct?" Tiffany couldn't breathe. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, ruining her spray tan. "You have 5 seconds to apologize to my mother," Lorenzo said. "And if I don't believe you mean it, you will leave this party through the window." "We are on the 42nd floor," Tiffany threw herself at Donatella's feet. It was pathetic. "Mrs. Moretti, I am so sorry. I'm so stupid. Please forgive me. I'll donate everything. I'll do anything." Donatella looked at the crying girl with eyes of steel. She didn't say a word. She just looked away. Lorenzo turned to Mr. Henderson. The manager was sweating so profusely his collar was soaked. "And you," Lorenzo said. "You fired the only person with a soul in this room." "Company policy, sir," Henderson squeaked. "She dropped a tray. I can hire her back with a raise, a big raise." "She won't be working for you anymore," Lorenzo said. He turned back to Agatha. Agatha was standing by the paramedics who had just arrived, escorted by Moretti's men. She felt dizzy. This was too much. Lorenzo approached her. The menacing aura vanished, replaced by a strange, intense curiosity. "My mother says you shielded her, that you stood between her and my security." "I thought they were going to hurt her," Agatha said, her voice shaking. "I didn't know they were yours. You risked your job. You risked your safety. For a stranger." Lorenzo looked at her dirty uniform, her cheap shoes, her messy hair. Then he looked at her eyes, green, wide, and honest. "I have a debt to pay to you, Agatha Jenkins," Lorenzo said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. It was black metal with gold embossing. A phone number, no name. "Go home," he said. "My driver is outside. He will take you anywhere you want to go. Do not take the subway tonight." I I can't, Agatha said. I have to finish my shift, or I don't get paid for the night. I need the money. Lorenzo stared at her. Well, you are worried about $50 when you are standing in front of me? It's $120, Agatha corrected him, lifting her chin. And yes, my sister needs medicine. Something flickered in Lorenzo's eyes. Respect? Surprise? He snapped his fingers. One of his guards walked over with a briefcase. Lorenzo opened it. It was stacked with cash. He pulled out a bundle, at least $10,000, and held it out. Take it. Agatha looked at the money. Then she looked at Lorenzo. She stepped back. No, she said. The room gasped again. You didn't say no to Enzo Moretti. Excuse me? Lorenzo asked, his brows knitting together. I didn't help her for money, Agatha said, her voice quiet but firm. I helped her because it was right. If I take your money, it makes it a transaction. It cheapens it. Lorenzo stood frozen. He had bought judges, politicians, and CEOs. He had never met anyone who refused his money. Donatella let out a soft laugh from her chair. She is proud, Lorenzo, like your father was. Lorenzo slowly lowered the money. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Very well. He turned to his men. Escort Miss Jenkins home. Ensure she is safe. If anyone, he glared at the room, anyone bothers her, they answer to me. He turned back to Agatha. This isn't over, Agatha. We will talk again. Agatha was ushered out of the ballroom by two men who looked like they chewed bricks for breakfast. As the doors closed behind her, she heard Lorenzo's voice addressing the room again. Now, let's discuss the damages to my mother's dignity. Who wants to go first? Underscore, 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 underscore. Agatha sat in the back of a Bentley that cost more than the apartment building she lived in. The leather seats were heated. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. She lived in a crumbling walk-up in Astoria, Queens. When the car pulled up, the contrast was stark. Graffiti on the walls, trash on the sidewalk. The driver, a man named Marco, opened the door for her. Mr. Moretti insists you take this card, Miss Jenkins. He said, if she refuses the money, tell her the favor remains. Agatha took the black metal card this time. She put it in her pocket. She walked up the 4 flights of stairs, her legs screaming in protest. She unlocked the door to apartment 4B. The smell of antiseptic hit her. Her sister, Lily, was asleep on the couch, hooked up to the home dialysis machine. It was an older model, loud and clunky. Lily was only 19, but her skin was grey, her body frail. Agatha sat on the floor beside the couch and wept. She had lost her job. The catering company would blacklist her. She had no money coming in for next week's treatment. She had stood up to the mafia, and she had nothing to show for it but a metal card and a terrifying memory. Or so she thought. The next morning, Agatha was woken by a pounding on the door. She panicked. Had the landlord come for the rent early? Had Henderson sent police? She opened the door, clutching her robe tight. Standing in the hallway was not the landlord. It was a man in a suit, holding a legal portfolio. Behind him stood 2 movers. Miss Agatha Jenkins? The man asked. Yes. My name is Arthur Pennington. I am the personal attorney for Mrs. Donatella Moretti. I don't understand. Mrs. Moretti was quite taken with you, Agatha, the lawyer said, stepping into the cramped hallway. She did some research last night. She knows about your sister. She knows about your debts. She has no right to— She has every right, Pennington interrupted gently, because as of this morning, the Moretti Foundation has purchased the building. Agatha's mouth dropped open. The building. This apartment building, Pennington clarified, and the one next to it, and the hospital where your sister receives her primary care. He handed her a thick envelope. Mr. Moretti offers you a job, not as a waitress. He needs a personal assistant for his mother. The salary is— He paused, checking the paper. $10,000 a month. plus full medical benefits for immediate family. Agatha leaned against the doorframe, her knees buckling. "There is one condition," Pennington said, his face serious. "What?" Agatha breathed. "You must live at the Moretti estate, for your safety. Because now that the world knows you are under Enzo Moretti's protection, you have a target on your back." Agatha looked at Lily, sleeping on the couch. Then she looked at the lawyer. "When do we leave?" The Moretti estate wasn't just a house. It was a fortress disguised as a palace. Located in the deepest, most wooded part of the Hamptons, it sat behind 12-foot iron gates topped with spikes. As the Bentley rolled through the entrance, Agatha saw armed guards patrolling the perimeter with German shepherds. Agatha gripped Lily's hand. Lily was wide-eyed, staring out the window at the manicured lawns that seemed to stretch for miles. "Is this real?" Lily whispered, clutching her portable oxygen tank. "Agatha, are we being kidnapped?" "We're being hired," Agatha said, though she wasn't entirely sure herself. "Just remember, we stick together." The car stopped in front of a limestone mansion that rivaled the White House in size. The massive oak doors opened, and a line of staff stood waiting. But standing at the top of the stairs, alone, was Lorenzo Moretti. He had changed out of his suit into a black button-down shirt and dark jeans, but he looked no less dangerous. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing tattoos that wrapped around his forearms, intricate, dark ink that looked like thorns and religious iconography. He walked down the stairs as Marco opened the car door. Lorenzo didn't look at Agatha. He looked straight at Lily. "You must be Lily," he said. His voice was softer than Agatha had ever heard it. Lily nodded, intimidated. "Yes, sir. My mother has prepared the East Wing for you. It has been equipped with hospital-grade filtration and a dedicated power generator for your equipment. Dr. Aris Thorne, the best nephrologist in the state, will be here at 4 p.m. to review your case." Agatha stepped out, stunned. You did all that in 4 hours?" Lorenzo finally turned his gaze to Agatha. The air between them crackled. "I don't do half measures, Miss Jenkins. If you are under my roof, your problems are my problems, and I solve problems quickly." "Thank you," Agatha breathed. "Don't thank me yet," Lorenzo said, his eyes darkening. "This isn't a vacation. You are here to work. My mother is stubborn, refuses her medication, and thinks she is invincible. Your job is to keep her alive. If she falls again, if she misses a dose, you answer to me." "I can handle it," Agatha said, lifting her chin. "We'll see. Underscore, 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 underscore. The first week was a blur of luxury and tension. The East Wing was larger than Agatha's entire apartment building. Lily was settling in, her color returning thanks to the high-quality food and medical care. Agatha's job was surprisingly difficult. Donatella Moretti was a force of nature. She hated being treated like an invalid. She tried to hide her pills in flower pots. She tried to sneak espresso when her heart rate was too high. She tried to walk the grounds without her cane. Agatha became the only person who could tell the matriarch no. "Donatella, spit it out," Agatha said on the third day, holding out her hand. Donatella glared at her from the velvet armchair in the library. "It is just a vitamin. It's a salt tablet. And with your blood pressure, it's poison. Spit it out." Donatella sighed dramatically and spat the tablet into a tissue. Then she smiled. "You are tough. Good. Lorenzo needs someone tough. The women he dates. Models. Influencers. Like that Tiffany girl. Empty heads, empty hearts." "I'm not dating your son, Donatella," Agatha reminded her, organizing the pill organizer. "I'm his employee." "For now." Donatella winked. Lorenzo was a ghost in the house. He left before dawn and returned long after dark. When he was home, the atmosphere changed. The staff moved quieter. The guards looked sharper. It wasn't until late Friday night that Agatha truly met him again. It was 2 a.m. Agatha couldn't sleep. She went down to the industrial-sized kitchen to get warm milk. The house was silent, shadowed, and vast. She turned the corner into the kitchen and froze. Lorenzo was there. He was sitting at the island, a bottle of whiskey open in front of him, a half-empty glass in his hand. He was shirtless. Agatha gasped and turned to leave, but the image burned into her mind. Lorenzo's back was a roadmap of violence. Scars, knife slashes, bullet wounds, burns crisscrossed his skin. It was a map of a life lived in war. "Don't run away," his voice rumbled. He didn't turn around. "I can hear your heartbeat from here, Agatha." Agatha hesitated, then walked slowly into the kitchen. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted milk." Lorenzo swiveled on the stool. His chest was just as scarred, but what caught Agatha's attention was a fresh bruise on his ribs, purpling and ugly. "Rough day at the office?" Agatha asked, her voice dry. Lorenzo huffed, a sound that might have been a laugh. "Hostile takeover. Negotiations broke down." "Does the other guy look worse?" "The other guy isn't breathing." The silence stretched. It should have been terrifying, but Agatha felt a strange pull toward him. He looked exhausted, not just tired, but soul-weary. "You're bleeding," Agatha said, pointing to a cut on his bicep. "It's nothing." "Sit still." Agatha went to the first aid cabinet she had organized for Donatella. She grabbed antiseptic and bandages. She walked back to him. Lorenzo watched her. He didn't move as she stepped between his spread knees. She poured antiseptic on a cotton pad. "This will sting," she said. "I don't feel sting." She dabbed the cut. He didn't flinch. His muscles were rock hard under her fingers. She could feel the heat radiating off him. Being this close to him felt like standing next to a furnace. "Why did you really take us in?" Agatha asked softly, applying the bandage. "It wasn't just because I helped your mother. You don't strike me as a charitable man." Lorenzo looked down at her. His hand moved almost involuntarily, hovering near her waist before he gripped the edge of the stool instead. "You're right. I'm not charitable. I'm possessive." Agatha looked up, locking eyes with him. "What does that mean?" "It means," Lorenzo said, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper, "that in my world, loyalty is the rarest currency. You showed loyalty to a stranger who had nothing to offer you. That makes you rare. And I collect rare things. Is that all I am? A collectible?" Lorenzo leaned in. His face was inches from hers. She could smell the whiskey and the metallic scent of danger. "No, you are a liability, because looking at you makes me want to burn the world down just to keep you warm, and I can't afford that distraction." Agatha's breath hitched. Lorenzo abruptly stood up, backing away from her. The moment shattered. "Go to bed, Agatha," he commanded coldly. "Lock your door." He grabbed the whiskey bottle and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Agatha standing there, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The truce between Agatha and Lorenzo was fragile. They avoided each other for days, but the outside world was not so kind. 2 weeks into her stay, Donatella insisted on attending the opening of a new Italian restaurant in Manhattan, Il Cielo. "It is owned by the family," Donatella insisted, adjusting her diamond earrings. "I must make an appearance, and you, Cara, are coming with me." "I don't think Lorenzo would like that," Agatha said, feeling a knot in her stomach. "Lorenzo is not the boss of me," Donatella scoffed. "Besides, he will be there. We will be safe." Agatha was dressed in a gown Donatella had bought for her, a deep emerald silk dress that hugged her curves and left her back exposed. When she walked down the stairs, Lorenzo was waiting in the foyer, checking his watch. He looked up. He stopped checking his watch. His eyes swept over her, devouring her. For a second, his guard dropped, and pure, raw hunger flashed across his face. Then the mask slammed back down. "Put a coat on," he growled. "It's 70 degrees out," Agatha argued. "I don't care. Put a coat on. You're drawing attention." "That is the point," Donatella chirped, hooking her arm through Agatha's. She is beautiful. Let her shine." The ride to the city was tense. Lorenzo sat opposite them in the limo, typing furiously on his phone, but Agatha could feel his eyes on her every time she looked out the window. Il Cielo was spectacular. Glass walls, candlelight, and the elite of New York's underworld mingling with politicians and judges. Lorenzo guided them to the VIP booth in the back, positioned so he could see every entrance. He sat Agatha next to him. His body heat was a constant presence. "Don't talk to anyone," he murmured in her ear. "Don't accept drinks. Don't go to the bathroom alone." "I thought we were safe here," Agatha whispered back. "You are never safe when you are with me." The dinner was going smoothly until the arrival of Vincent Russo. Russo was the underboss of the rival crime family. He was a greasy man with too much hair gel and a loud, braying laugh. He walked over to their table, ignoring the glare of Lorenzo's guards. "Donatella!" Russo boomed, leaning over the table, looking ancient as ever. "Vincent," Donatella said icily, "I see you haven't been indicted yet. A slow year for the FBI?" Russo laughed, but his eyes drifted to Agatha. He licked his lips. "And who is this fresh meat? I didn't know you had a new mistress, Enzo. Usually you go for the plastic ones. This one looks homegrown." Lorenzo's hand clenched around his steak knife. His knuckles turned white. "Walk away, Vincent." "What? Can't I introduce myself?" Russo reached out, his hand aiming to touch Agatha's bare shoulder. Before his finger could graze her skin, Lorenzo moved. It was a blur. 1 second Lorenzo was sitting, the next he was standing, and the steak knife was stabbed deep into the wooden table, right between Vincent's fingers. The restaurant went silent. "Touch her," Lorenzo whispered, his voice deadly calm, "and you lose the hand." Vincent pulled his hand back, his face flushing red with rage. "You're crazy, Moretti. Starting a war over a waitress. Yeah, we know who she is. The little charity case." Vincent sneered at Agatha. "Tell me, sweetheart, how much is he paying you to warm his bed? Or do you do it for free because you like the bad boys?" Agatha didn't shrink away. She stood up slowly. She picked up her glass of heavy red wine. "He pays me for my loyalty," Agatha said clearly. "Something you clearly can't buy, seeing as your own bodyguards are looking at you with disgust." She splashed the wine directly into Vincent's face. The red liquid dripped down his expensive white shirt. Vincent roared and lunged for her. Lorenzo didn't just stop him. He destroyed him. He caught Vincent by the throat, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him onto the adjacent table. Dishes shattered. Women screamed. Lorenzo's gun was out in a flash, the barrel pressed against Vincent's forehead. "Give me a reason," Lorenzo snarled. "Please, give me a reason." Moretti's men had their weapons drawn, aiming at Vincent's bodyguards. The restaurant was a standoff. Donatella remained seated, calmly sipping her water. "Lorenzo," Donatella said softly, "not here. The risotto is excellent. Do not ruin the chef's night." Lorenzo stared at Vincent, his eyes burning with a dark fire. He slowly lowered the gun, but he leaned in close to Vincent's ear. "If you ever look at her again, I will cut your eyes out. If you speak her name, I will cut your tongue out. Get out," he dropped Vincent. The rival underboss scrambled up, humiliated, dripping wine. He pointed a shaking finger at Lorenzo. "This isn't over, Moretti. You just signed your death warrant." Vincent stormed out. Lorenzo turned to Agatha. She was shaking, the adrenaline crash hitting her. He grabbed her hand, too hard, and pulled her towards the exit. "We are leaving! Now!" "Lorenzo, you're hurting me," Agatha gasped as he dragged her through the kitchen to the back exit. He didn't stop until they were in the alleyway, the cold night air hitting their faces. He pinned her against the brick wall. He wasn't hurting her, but he was trapping her, his body pressing her into the bricks. He was breathing hard, his pupils dilated. "Are you insane?" he shouted. "You threw wine at Vincent Russo. Do you have a death wish? He insulted you. He insulted me, Agatha yelled back. I wasn't going to let him talk to us like that. You don't understand. Lorenzo slammed his hand against the wall next to her head. These aren't rude customers at a diner, Agatha. These are killers. He would have put a bullet in your brain without blinking. I felt safe because you were there, Agatha cried. I knew you wouldn't let him hurt me. The confession hung in the air. Lorenzo stared at her, his chest heaving. You trust me? Yes. You shouldn't. Why? Because you're a monster. Agatha reached up, her hand trembling, and touched the scar on his eyebrow. I don't see a monster. I see a man who just defended his family. None. Lorenzo closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against hers. He was shaking. You are making me weak, Agatha. You make me want to be a man I can't be. Maybe you don't have to be the Reaper all the time, she whispered. Lorenzo opened his eyes. The violence was gone, replaced by an intensity that was far more dangerous. He looked at her lips. If I kiss you now, he muttered, I won't be able to stop. And if I don't stop, I will ruin you. I will drag you into this darkness, and you will never get out. I'm already in the dark, Agatha said. Maybe I want to be there with you. Lorenzo let out a groan, a sound of defeat and desire. He cupped her face in his large, rough hands and crashed his lips onto hers. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate. It was the taste of wine, fear, and possession. Agatha wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. For a moment, the alleyway, the guns, the threats, it all vanished. There was only the fire between them. But just as quickly, the sound of tires screeching broke the moment. An SUV squealed around the corner of the alley. Automatic windows rolled down. The barrels of submachine guns poked out. Lorenzo's instincts took over instantly. He didn't think. He reacted. He threw Agatha to the ground, covering her body with his own. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Bullets chewed up the brick wall where they had been standing a second ago. Debris rained down on them. Lorenzo grunted, his body jerking sharply. The SUV sped off into the night. Silence returned to the alley, ringing in Agatha's ears. Lorenzo, Agatha whispered, terrified. She felt something warm and wet seeping through her dress. Lorenzo rolled off her, landing on his back on the dirty pavement. He looked up at the stars, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Are you okay? He wheezed. Agatha scrambled over to him. She looked at his chest. The white shirt he wore under his suit was turning red, fast. Oh my God, Agatha screamed. Lorenzo! He had taken 2 bullets in the back, bullets meant for her. He reached up, his bloody hand staining her cheek. I told you, he coughed, blood bubbling at his lips. I told you. I'm dangerous to be around. His eyes rolled back and his hand fell limp. Help! Agatha screamed into the empty alley, her voice tearing her throat. Somebody help! The next few hours were a kaleidoscope of terror. The arrival of the black SUVs, Marco's face draining of color as he saw his boss bleeding out on the pavement, the screaming sirens of the private ambulance that seemed to appear out of nowhere. They didn't go to St. Luke's or Mount Sinai. They went to a nondescript brick building in Queens that looked like a veterinary clinic from the outside. Inside, it was a state-of-the-art trauma center, staffed by doctors who knew better than to ask questions and were paid in cash bribes that rivaled lottery winnings. Agatha refused to leave Lorenzo's side. She held his hand while they cut the expensive suit off his body. She watched as they intubated him. She was covered in his blood. It dried sticky and dark on her hands, her emerald dress ruined. Miss Jenkins, you need to step out, a grim-faced surgeon said. We need to operate, now. I'm not leaving him, Agatha whispered, her voice devoid of emotion, just pure shock. Agatha. Donatella had arrived. She walked into the trauma bay, still wearing her jewels from dinner, leaning heavily on her cane. Her face was composed, almost statue-like, but her eyes were filled with a mother's ultimate agony. Come with me, Bambina, Donatella said, her voice steel. He needs surgeons now. We need to handle the rest." Agatha let Donatella lead her into a waiting room that felt more like a bunker. It was windowless, filled with leather chairs and the smell of stale coffee and fear. Within an hour, the room filled up. Men in suits, captains of the Moretti crime family, arrived with faces like thunderclouds. The air was thick with testosterone and the promise of retribution. Leading them was Salvatore Sal Romano, Lorenzo's underboss. He was 50, built like a fire hydrant, with a perpetually suspicious scowl. He had never liked Agatha. He saw her as a weakness. Sal walked straight up to Agatha, ignoring Donatella. "What happened?" Sal barked. "Where was the security gap? How did Russo's men know the exit route?" Agatha was shaking, holding a lukewarm cup of coffee. "I don't know. We went out the back because Vincent Russo caused a scene inside. Lorenzo was just trying to get me out safe. Trying to get you out safe," Sal repeated with disgust. He turned to the other captains. "See? I told Enzo. Soft spots get you killed. He took 2 slugs meant for a waitress." "Watch your mouth, Salvatore." Donatella's voice cut through the room. She didn't raise it, but everyone froze. "Here you are speaking to the woman my son took a bullet for. That buys her respect in this family." "With all due respect, Donna Donatella," Sal argued, his face red. "Enzo is on an operating table because of her. We are vulnerable. The wolves know the lion is down. We need to hit back at Russo tonight. We burn his whole operation to the ground." The room murmured in agreement. The thirst for blood was palpable. "No," Agatha said. The room went dead silent. Sal looked at her like she had grown a second head. "Excuse me?" Sal growled. Agatha stood up. She was still covered in Lorenzo's blood. It gave her a horrific sort of authority. "Lorenzo isn't dead. He is still the Don. And until he wakes up, nobody makes a move that starts an all-out war in New York City without proof." "Proof?" Sal laughed bitterly. "Russo threatened him to his face 10 minutes before the shooting." "Exactly," Agatha said, her mind racing, pieces falling into place despite the trauma. It was too sloppy. Russo is loud and stupid, but he isn't suicidal. Attacking Lorenzo right after publicly threatening him? It makes him the obvious suspect. Too obvious. She looked around the room at the hardened criminals. Whoever did this knew our exact exit route. They knew exactly when we would be in that alley. That wasn't Russo getting lucky. That was an inside job. The accusation hung in the air like poisonous gas. To suggest a traitor in the Moretti inner circle was a death sentence. Sal stepped close to her, invading her space. "Are you accusing my men of disloyalty, little girl? You better be careful. You don't have Enzo to hide behind right now." "I'm not hiding," Agatha said, meeting his gaze. "I'm telling you that if you go after Russo tonight, the real traitor is going to laugh while you waste your ammo on the wrong target." Donatella stood up beside Agatha. "She is right, Salvatore. My son is methodical. He would want to know the truth before we paint the streets red. We wait. We lock down the territory. And we find the leak." Sal looked between the formidable matriarch and the defiant waitress covered in blood. He cursed under his breath. "Fine, we lock down. But if Enzo dies," he looked at Agatha, "this is on you." Underscore, 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 underscore. The surgery took 9 hours. Lorenzo survived, but the damage was severe. One bullet had nicked a lung, the other had lodged near his spine. The doctors put him in a medically induced coma to let his body heal. For 3 days, Agatha didn't leave the hospital. She slept in the chair next to his bed. She learned the rhythm of the ventilator breathing for him. The mighty Lorenzo Moretti looked human, pale, covered in wires and tubes. But even in stillness, he possessed a gravity that drew her in. On the 3rd night, sitting in the dim light of the machines, Agatha took his limp hand. "You have to wake up," she whispered fiercely. "You promised me we'd talk again. You promised me I wasn't safe with you. Prove it." Wake up and be dangerous again, because I don't know how to do this without you." She laid her head on the mattress near his hand and finally let herself cry. She realized with terrifying clarity that she wasn't just grateful to him. She wasn't just loyal. She was in love with the monster who had saved her life, and the monster was currently defenseless. Outside the hospital room, the city was brewing. Attacks on Moretti shipping containers in the docks, a fire at one of their legitimate warehouses in Jersey. Someone was testing the waters, seeing if the organization would crumble without the Reaper. Agatha dried her tears. Crying wouldn't save him. Finding the truth would. She thought back to that night. The restaurant, the specific exit, who knew? Lorenzo, Marco, the restaurant manager. And the person who handled Lorenzo's schedule. She needed access to Lorenzo's phone. It was in a plastic effects bag on the side table. She took it out. It was locked, obviously. She looked at Lorenzo's sleeping face. What would be your passcode? It wouldn't be a birthday. It wouldn't be simple. She tried the date of his father's death. Incorrect. She tried Donatella's birthday. Incorrect. Then she remembered the night in the kitchen. The way he talked about loyalty. The way he looked at her. She typed in the date they met. The date of the charity gala. The phone unlocked. Agatha's heart skipped a beat. He used the day he met her as the code to his empire. She quickly navigated to his secure messaging app. She scrolled through the messages from that night. And there it was. A message sent at 8:15 p.m. while they were eating appetizers. It listed the restaurant, the table location, and the predetermined emergency exit route via the north alley. The recipient was listed only as Asset 4, but it wasn't the recipient that made Agatha's blood run cold. It was the sender. The message hadn't come from Lorenzo's phone. It had been forwarded to his phone as an FYI from his personal attorney, Arthur Pennington, the man who had brought her the job offer, the man who smiled kindly and handled Donatella's estate. Lorenzo hadn't set up the ambush. Pennington had shared the security details with someone else. Agatha felt sick. She dropped the phone on the bed just as the door to the room opened. It was Arthur Pennington. He was holding a bouquet of lilies. He looked impeccable in his suit, his expression one of practiced concern. "Agatha, my dear," Pennington said smoothly. "How is he? And how are you holding up? You look exhausted." Agatha stared at him. She saw the snake behind the smile now, the cold calculation in his eyes. "He's stable," Agatha said, her voice tight. She casually placed her hand over Lorenzo's phone, hiding it. "Why are you here, Arthur? It's 3 a.m. I'm the family lawyer. I need to ensure everything is in order in case the worst happens." He stepped closer to the bed, looking down at Lorenzo with an expression Agatha couldn't quite read. Was it regret or triumph? "He's going to wake up," Agatha said defiantly. "We all hope so," Pennington sighed. He looked at Agatha, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You know, Agatha, you should really go home. Get some rest. You've done enough." There was a double meaning in his words. "You've caused enough trouble. Get out of the way." "I'm staying right here." Pennington's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Loyalty is a commendable trait, Agatha, until it becomes a liability." He reached into his jacket pocket. Agatha tensed, expecting a gun, but he just pulled out a business card and placed it on the table next to the lilies. "If you need anything at all, call me." He turned and left the room. Agatha looked at the card, then she looked at the phone under her hand. She knew who the traitor was, but she was just a waitress in a room full of killers. Who would believe her over the family consigliere? She needed help. She needed the only person in this world scarier than Lorenzo. She picked up the hospital room phone and dialed the estate. "Wake up Donatella," Agatha said when the staff answered. "Tell her I know who tried to kill her son." The hospital room felt like a tomb. Machines whispered and breathed for Lorenzo, each mechanical hiss a reminder that death was still close enough to touch. Donatella Moretti stood in the shadows, her black coat still on, her posture unyielding. She had come quietly, through service halls and guarded elevators, carrying her son's phone in her gloved hands. The message from Arthur Pennington burned on the screen. "He has been family for 30 years, she said at last, "and he sold us." "He thinks Lorenzo is weak," Agatha replied, standing by the darkened window. "He thinks caring about someone made him vulnerable." Donatella studied her. The girl from the gala was gone. In her place stood a woman with steel in her spine. "And was he right?" Donatella asked. "No," Agatha said. "It gave him something worth surviving for." Silence followed, then resolve. "We tell him Lorenzo is waking up," Agatha said. "That's how we draw him out. Underscore, 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 underscore." At 4:12 a.m., the door moved. Arthur Pennington slipped inside wearing scrubs, calm and precise. He locked the door, crossed the room, and reached for the IV. The syringe in his hand gleamed under the monitor's glow. "You chose war for a girl," he murmured to the unconscious body. "She's not just a girl," Agatha said. Pennington spun. Agatha stepped from the shadows, phone raised, recording every word. He smiled thinly, offered money, threatened ruin, took a step toward her. Then a hand burst from the sheets. Lorenzo's grip crushed Pennington's wrist. His eyes were open, clear, burning, alive. "I was never asleep," Lorenzo rasped. "I was waiting." The syringe fell. Pennington begged, promised everything. One shot ended it. When Lorenzo collapsed, Agatha caught him, blood soaking her hands as she held him together. "I chose war for you," he whispered. "And I'll choose you every time," she answered. Underscore, 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 underscore. 6 months later, the ballroom glittered again. Mr. and Mrs. Moretti. They descended the stairs like fate itself. Lorenzo, scarred but standing. Agatha, radiant and unbowed. The room parted. Fear replaced laughter. Agatha stopped beside Tiffany St. Clair. "Careful with your drink," she said softly. "The staff works very hard." Then she turned away. As they danced, Donatella raised her glass. Agatha rested her head against Lorenzo's chest. Over the scar that marked the night, kindness became power. They said mercy was weakness. They were wrong. The waitress was gone. Long live the Queen. And that is how Agatha Jenkins went from clearing tables to ruling the table. It's a reminder that you never know who you are talking to. That old woman on the bus, that quiet man in the coffee shop, they could be the key to your destruction or your destiny. In the end, Tiffany St. Clair learned the hard way. Arrogance is expensive. But kindness? Kindness pays back with interest. What would you have done if you were Agatha? Would you have taken the money and run? Or would you have stayed to fight for the monster who saved you? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. It helps the algorithm find more people who love drama just like you. And if you want more stories about karma, revenge, and forbidden romance that you can't pause, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. I'm dropping a new story every Tuesday and Friday, and trust me, the next one is even crazier. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and remember, always be kind to strangers.